did you see what J.D. Vance's performance did for the prediction markets surrounding the expectation over who is going to win this election? Wow, I was watching them in real time last night. I tweeted some of them out from our friends over at Polymark, another great sponsor of the Trish Regan show. But here's what I want to show you, because yesterday on the show, or maybe the day before, we were looking at a 2-point spread. Donald Trump was down actually compared to Kamala Harris. And now look at this. The edge goes to Trump, because if you look at the volume, just barely going to Trump here. We're seeing 50% there to Trump. You're seeing 50% to Kamala Harris. But again, this is real money that's being put at work. I should point out that you cannot actually make any wagers in the prediction markets in the US or in countries that don't allow this, but they're super interesting to watch, right? They're super interesting to watch, because as I was taking a look at things last night, I got a kick out of it. Because J.D. Vance was climbing. The expectation that he would win the day. So in fact, friends were like sending these to me. Did you see what's happening in Polymarket? I'm like, oh my gosh. So J.D. going into it looked like he was going to win, because, you know, he just kind of set himself well. And then all of a sudden you started to see it shift a little bit. And it looked like Timmy might be making a comeback. And then sure enough, the betting markets, or I should say prediction markets, started switching back again. So fascinating to see, really and truly, because this is real-time money going to work. Check it out. They're open 24/7, so you can kind of get a read on things. And they have prediction markets for everything. It's not just the presidential race, although that's certainly an interesting one to watch. But you can see what people are expecting in terms of the Fed, or say in crypto prices. They might even have one. I think they should have one on when exactly Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are going to break up. Anyway, there's a prediction market out there. It's called Polymarket. It's super cool because they use crypto. I'm talking blockchain technology from Ethereum in order to do this. It's really neat stuff. I was keeping an eye on it there last night. But the other thing I would say is, overall in the polls, this is the one that I like most recently. I do think that North Carolina actually, especially in light of the lack of resources that this administration is providing to North Carolina, and in kind of a big time of need, they could be off on North Carolina and Nevada. I'd be surprised to see Harris actually up in Nevada. I think that everything that Trump has promoted there, especially in terms of no taxes on tips, really resonates with the voters in Nevada. But I'm encouraged to see Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, all up, theoretically going to Trump. And then this would be the map that you would see. If you look at Real Clear Politics, you're also seeing that the advantage goes to Trump right now. So all of these polls are starting to catch up. I think that you're still seeing a lot of closeness, so it's still kind of hard to predict what's going to happen, other than, well, can we go with Trish's intuition because she's been right, like, on everything. Sorry, not to brag or anything, but yeah, everybody was like, there's no way he's going to win in 2016, and I'm like, hey, don't count him out, because you really need to understand exactly how people feel, and people are not encouraged with what they're seeing going on right now. We need a lot of changes, a whole lot of sweeping changes. And, I want to just get at what happened last night. Again, JD was fantastic, and we don't need to reiterate the whole thing. I would say that at times it got like a little dense and a little bit wonky. That's okay. Like, we need to have dense, wonky conversations. And there was a little less sort of name calling and that kind of thing, except the attitude that we got from the moderators. And then that may have been the most exciting moment of the night, when the moderators suddenly felt like they were the second grade school teachers and they were going to shut JD down because they didn't agree with what he had to say. Remember that moment? Again, you get the second grade school teachers moving in saying, we don't like what you're saying. We're better than you. They promised him they wouldn't be fact checking throughout the night, except, well, apparently they couldn't help themselves. And so then this little moment ensued.
But thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn now to the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws.
It went on a little bit longer, and just to describe it to you, she's like, we have so much to get to. And at some point, they allowed the other guy, Timmy, to come in and say something. And then they realized, okay, well, this is looking bad. And so you had Vance come back in, and then they shut down the mics. And so you just heard Vance's voice in the background. He's trying to describe this because actually it turns out he was right. She was wrong on this. And it's nuanced, to say the least. I mean, and it's very specific in terms of this particular category of how immigrants are being labeled, if you would. And instead of allowing him to do this, she just shut it down, took off his mic, and then had the smug comment. And, oh, thank you for telling us how a bill is made. It was just really kind of inappropriate. And you could just kind of feel the bias, feel the loathing there in the room. The moderators really didn't have a lot of respect for Vance. But what I think that he actually showed overall is that, one, he's lied a lot in the past. I mean, we knew that about his military experience, right? And then it came up regarding his trip to China. He said he was there in Tiananmen Square, or in China at the time that that tragedy happened in 1989. It was in June. It turns out he actually wasn't there till like August, so that wasn't quite exactly correct. And he's been caught in that lie. He was asked about it, and he didn't have sort of the facility with words to get around it. So he just kind of admitted that he had lied. I mean, this is sort of an amazing thing. There are two sort of highlights of the night. I mean, that and the kind of friends that he keeps, which we won't go into. I'm like, is this a cognitive moment? Buddy, are you like another Biden? Or do we have to worry about what you're saying? Anyway, he here talked about that time he was in China. Listen.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Oh, really? He learned a lot about what needs to be in governance here? Gee, great. Glad you're learning from China. Scary. Quick reminder, again, one of our great sponsors, American Hartford Gold. You can text Trish to 65532 for up to $15,000 worth of free silver. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115, 1-844-495-1115. Again, text Trish, my name, to 65532. I mean, no one thought he won this. No one. In fact, when you look at the mainstream media, they also were quite negative on his performance. I want to go to what CNN had to say, because CNN was not impressed. They're blaming it on lack of preparation, the fact that he hasn't been doing any media interviews. They could have coached him, I guess, right? If they had only gone on with Dana Bash and Jake Tapper a little bit more, maybe Timmy Waltz would have done a little bit better a job. Here we go.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on
Waltz's part. I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen, and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
Yeah. So that's why, right? Oh, it's just who's better at public speaking. Forget about the fact that one is a politician and one actually has a brain inside his head. I mean, I look at Waltz and I'm actually concerned. I'm concerned about our country because this is a guy who maybe is just a full-on true communist, and that's why he doesn't own anything, including so much as a mortgage. So he doesn't own his house. He doesn't own one share, not one share of equity in a company, so he's not into stocks. I mean, it's a little strange, right? He's made six figures for 20 some odd years, and yet he doesn't own anything. I mean, I'm not saying, you got to be a zillionaire. I'm just saying, be a little responsible with your money. He's either one of two things. He's either a total communist who wants to go the way of China, or he's actually really that lacking in his sophistication. I think he is a communist, and I think he does lack sophistication as well. So it's a little bit of a double whammy, which is quite terrifying.